Well, thanks, Mike, Dr. Perry, for an excellent opening to our series. And I really want to thank you, Michael, for really spearheading so much work on the mental health front. For the past 20 to 25 years, we've been collaborating with at the Richmond Hill Church with our wellness series. To your wife, Kathy, for all the background work, and to really the other colleagues that are on our Zoom today, Dr. Ray Go and Cynthia, Dr. Victor Mack and Esther, and Ted and Nora Wu. Just really thank you for all doing so much. And I even spotted a founder of our OCCMF. I think Anne and Michael Ho are present as well. And I do want to also give a thanks right now to Mark Sy. He's a really an excellent physiotherapist, a colleague of mine. We've worked together on patients, and he's now doing the live Mandarin translation, which is great. And finally, I do want to thank Reverend Dr. Francis Tam for inviting us to speak and really for casting the vision for improving mental health in this challenging pandemic times or post-pandemic times. Thank you to Alex and Alfred as well for all the background work too. And we hope that this is the start of some more regular seminars to strengthen the body, mind, and spirit, not only of the Chinese church communities, but also other groups across Canada. So before I begin, I do want to emphasize our disclaimer, because I'm going to share with you strategies, and I don't want you to take it out of context. You do not stop your medications. You do not stop your counseling therapy just to take vitamins, all right? So make sure you discuss things with your family doctor and psychiatrist first. Another disclaimer, because I am with the University of Toronto and Department of Medicine and the OMA Speakers Bureau, I declare that I'm not receiving any honorarium for this talk. I will not be endorsing any technology or programs for any financial gain. I will mention any potential biases if there's an off-label use of drugs or therapies as discussed. And really, one final disclaimer, I wish to acknowledge our caring for the Indigenous communities in Canada and reaffirming our common values of diversity, of equity, and inclusivity. And as Christians, most of us here are Christians, we follow Jesus' example in loving others, in believing every person has value and intrinsic worth. Right. So that's the disclaimer. Just wanted to move that forward. So in terms of my professional background, you can see that on the website. You could read about it. Just to summarize, I have 35 years plus of professional experience in working frontline, face-to-face, now Zoom to Zoom as well, with my patients with chronic pain and stress. And I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm a physiatrist, which is a specialist in physical medicine and rehabilitation. Now, in the next 35 minutes, I hope you give me a little bit of overtime because, Mike, thank you for finishing a little earlier. I would like to share with you 5 practical strategies that you can use to improve your mental and physical health while you're waiting to see your family doctor or while you're waiting for the appointment to see the psychiatrist. And these are some things you can do right away, right? So the first thing you can do right away is simply smile. Now, for those of us who are brave, maybe show your face, okay? And look at yourself on the screen and just smile. Smile, look at yourself. And there's a study that was published a few years ago where they analyzed 138 papers of over 11,000 people with depression. And they found that if you just smiled 30 seconds in the mirror every morning, after a period of time, you will start to feel happier. How you start your day is so important. Now, I heard another study that was published in the Harvard Bulletin a couple of years ago, where they found that people who wake up to the morning news, so you have your radio alarm on, 680 news, you hear the news, another shooting, another accident, something bad in the world, and right away you start your day not the right way. And they found that people who wake up regularly like that, they are 27% less happier that day. So one thing you can do, maybe even starting tonight, maybe tomorrow morning, after you brush your teeth, but you get get yourself clean first, is to smile in the mirror for 30 seconds and then see how things move. Now, SMILE, by the way, stands for 5 things I'd like to be sharing with you: sleep, move, inhale, love and connect, and eat right. I'm going to spend really the first half on eating right because I think in the Chinese community, in our North American society, we have to get this right. And eating right is foundational. And so I'm going to, with each section, I'm going to talk about a quote from Hippocrates, who's the father of modern medicine. His observations from years of working really with patients and really dispelling the superstitious beliefs back then that it's the Greek or Roman gods that were mad at you and that's why you're sick, right? He sort of brought the science in. I'm going to then support that with the latest science that has been published. You'll see a lot of the papers are very, very recent. And then I'm going to give you personal applications, including biblical wisdom and how this applies. So 3 components. Let's spend some time on this right now. So looking at eating right, back in 400 BC, Hippocrates said, "Let food be thy medicine, medicine be thy food." We now see, 2,400 years later, the first ever published randomized study. So, the gold standard in science is a clinical trial. And in this study that was published back in 2017 by Felice Jacka and her group out of the University of Melbourne in Australia, what they did was they took subjects with moderately severe depression, and they randomized them into one group that got 7 sessions with a dietitian, 1 hour each, once a week for the first month, and then after that it was every 2 weeks for the total of the 12 weeks. The other group got 7 social support times with, again, professionals, where they spent just, like talking about life in general, maybe playing board games, just to have that type of social support, or what we call befriending, which is a standard control use in psychotherapy studies and in medication studies. And the main outcome measure, besides measuring the body weight and pressure, and taking blood tests and all these analyses, right, is the main outcome measure was the Madras score, which is the Montgomery-Åsberg Depression Rating Scale. That's a score from 0 to 60. That's assessed. 60 out of 60 means you're severe depression. 0 is no depression at all. So 0 to 60. And interestingly, what they found after the 12 weeks is that the group getting dietary counseling, which not only include being informed on what to eat, but being taught how to goal set, how to do motivational, be motivated. And the dietitian also taught them some mindfulness eating approaches as well. But that diet group was much better than the support group. P-value was significant for those of you who are statisticians. And in terms of remission of depression, which is considered anything below 10, 4 times more of the diet group got into remission of depression than the control group. So this is the first study ever published, worldwide, randomized trial. Now, what did the dietitians tell people to do in the group? They encouraged them to eat more of a modified Mediterranean diet. So, what we know in the literature, right? Fresh fruits and vegetables, lean meats, fish, using olive oil, not the other types of oils, and really not eating the fast foods. We call it the SAD diet, S-A-D, which is Standard American Diet, which I would also say is the standard Asian diet. The Gongjiamin and the lapchung and all these things, right? Standard Asian diet as well. So, and they were told their beverages were less than 2 sugary drinks per week. And they were advised to have, if they're going to have any wine, less than 2 or more, 2 or equal a day. And interestingly, the reasons for them feeling better was not because they lost weight or their calories were different. There was actually no difference in terms of weight at the end of the 3 months. The modified diet is actually 19% less expensive than having the fast food diet. And the compliance was better with the diet because as they ate properly, they actually felt better and they stuck to the program. Now, This study has been replicated several times by other large, big groups. And there's a good summary of this in Nutritional Psychiatry that came out in 2019. This is the term that's used now, nutritional psychiatry. Another term that you'll see in the literature is functional medicine, nutritional psychiatry, functional medicine. And what the science is now showing is that, you know, the brain, where we think, where we feel, our immune system that keeps us healthy and fights off COVID and cancer and, you know, things like that, and our gut, our stomach, our liver, our intestines, it's all interconnected. It's all connected. You know that the bacteria in your gut, there are 37 trillion bacteria, which outnumbers the 30 trillion cells in your body. And with the Human Genome Project, which finished at a cost of billions of dollars, we've mapped out the DNA of in your cells. And the Human Microbiome Project was recently completed, I think 2017, mapping out the DNA of all the bacteria. And what's incredible now is all the researchers are matching your DNA with the bacteria DNA and what creates bad immune signals, what makes you feel bad, think bad, and feel pain. So I think this is really an important concept to understand. Everything is really centered coming down to around the gut. Even what Dr. Tam will be talking about, the neuroplasticity stuff, how you can influence the brain, has effects on the gut as well. But it's you know, the key points to remember: brain, immune, gut. The other thing I'd like you to remember is the vagus nerve. This is the brain's biggest nerve, the vagus nerve, and it is the control center for how you relieve your anxiety and depression, the vagus nerve. And I'm going to talk about that later on. So when you eat ultra-processed food, you know, you saw those pictures, there's no question you will have more depression and anxiety. The studies show that you're 1.5 times higher with depression and with anxiety. The big studies, thousands of people published, and these are studies that came out last year. You know, the data analytics is just driving everything. The ultra-processed food, also bad for your brain. There's a Brazilian study that was published this year. They took over 10,700 Brazilians, right? And they followed them for 9 years. And they found that the people who ate a lot of processed foods, ultra-processed foods, when they tested them, had a 25% lower memory, 28% lower verbal fluency. And then the big biobank study of 717, 33,000 person years of data, they found higher Alzheimer's and vascular dementia in people who were eating high levels of ultra-processed food. So you got to get off those food. And you think that's bad. What about the big C word, cancer? Big studies. Now, these are not cross-sectional studies. These are prospective studies where they follow people long-term. 197,426 people followed for over 10 years. And they found that if you eat, for every 10% increase in you eating this junk food, potato chips and, you know, French fries and deep fried foods and all these things, there's a 16% increase in breast cancer deaths in females, 30% increase in ovarian cancer deaths, men, 29% increase in colon cancer risk. So you got to get off these foods. So food rule, I'm going to give you 5 food rules, and you can write these down. Number 1, cut the crap. Don't eat crap. And I actually have a diary, so I write down at the end of the day, did I eat any crap? And I sort of try to reward myself, no crap today. So C are calorie-rich sugar foods, right? Look at the cake, look at these sweet cereals that we were brought up to eat. Watch the ketchup, watch the barbecue sauce, the salad dressings. They have high fructose corn syrup hidden in them. And diet pop is worse than regular pop for causing type 2 diabetes. You have more than 2 cans of diet pop a week than regular pop, your risk is more higher for type 2 diabetes because the aspartame kills the cells in your brain that control your weight and your memory centers, right? Weight control, memory center. And alcohol, big news about that. I'm going to, we could talk about in the Q&A part. And the processed junk food, get away from the noodles, the deli meats, frying foods with really bad oils. Stay away from that, right? So, and the trans fats, right? Cut the crap. Food rule number 2 is instead eat 5 to 10 servings of fruits and vegetables. It's something our mothers would have told us to do. They're rich of, full of nutrients. The fiber is really good for the helping build healthy bacteria in your gut. Has the antioxidants, anti-inflammatories, and there's an ingredient in the more colorful fruits and vegetables, like you see here, called carotenoids. These are the elements in these foods that, when they're absorbed in, will go to the lining of your nerves and your brain and protect them. Dietary carotenoids, when you measure them in the body, the more you have of it, the less depression. And again, big studies published on this. And if you want, you can dig that up from the paper as well. Food rule number 3, your brain is 60% made of omega-3 fats, 60%. And most of that being the DHA as well as the EPA components of fish oil, right? So you want to eat 2 servings of fish a week, but it's got to be healthy fish. And if you're pregnant, the Health Canada will say, don't eat tuna, because tuna, so much mercury. The bigger the fish, the higher on the food chain, the more not only mercury, but the more of DDT and pesticides and other chemicals in the fish ingredient. And if you're going to eat salmon, the big studies now coming out, you've got to be looking at wild salmon. Stay away from farmed salmon. So there's something called SMASH, S-M-A-S-H. So eat salmon, but wild salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, herring, the SMASH fish. You can Google that on the internet. And this slide, by the way, is courtesy of one of my best medical students to work with me. She already had a PhD in nutrition. We call her Mary Scow. And she gave a talk for the Head Injury Society of Canada about 2 Februaries ago. Her talk you can watch on the internet. It's about a 1-hour talk on what to do with the food in more detail than what I can tell you in a few minutes, right? The omega-3s are really helpful for anxiety, by the way. Big studies seem to point in that direction. Food rule number 4, start your day with protein and fiber. When I was a medical student, I used to just, on the run, I'd have my Tim Hortons coffee and a donut or a muffin. And then a few hours later, I would feel tired again. And if there was a Starbucks, I'd have to have a Starbucks or another coffee. And I was on this up and down roller coaster until I almost died. I had bleeding, ulcers. My gut was a terrible mess. I was in the ICU. I went through severe depression. I almost flunked out. And so that's why, what I tell the next generation of students and with yourselves is start your day the right way. Get some protein in there. Stay away from the sugar, because protein will stabilize your blood sugar, right? You won't go up and down with these mood swings. I used to eat this type of bread. I thought it was healthy. But then when you look at the carb fiber ratio, so I looked at the grams of carbs in this bread that I used to eat all the time. There's 13 grams of carb, 1 gram of fiber. 13 to 1 is too sugary. It's going to make me go on this roller coaster up and down with my blood sugar. So I switched over to the carbonaut bread, and that's 8 grams of carbs, 6 grams of fiber. It's a healthier bread. So if you're having any kind of bread, look at the labels. It's so important. Look at the labels. And now my typical breakfast, I have steel-cut oatmeal. I have lots of berries and fruits. I get my protein up by adding maybe a protein powder thing on days when I'm not having any kind of, let's say, a lean egg or something, or egg whites or something like that. I will have my hemp hearts and ground roast flaxseed. And a lot of this is in Dr. Michael Greger's resource, How Not to Die, nutritionfacts.org. That's where the rule comes from. So, and the only vitamin D that we can talk more in the Q&A is vitamin D. You got to measure it. You got to know what your numbers are. It's not a vitamin. It's a pro-hormone. It affects 2,000 genes of your 30,000 genes in your body. It's a big player, not only for osteoporosis, but prevents heart disease, COVID. It's good for your lung. You're looking at your lungs, your immune system. It is the key player. And the research now that came out last year is it helps children. You got to, if you have a child that's not is mentally unwell, get their vitamin D going. Add it to their diet. So to summarize food for good mood, don't eat crap. right? And we talked about all this. Number 2, 5 to 10 servings of fruits and veggies per day. Number 3, eat healthy fats. Environmentalworkinggroup.org lists the fish in terms of how much mercury and toxins there are. It's also fruits and vegetables with a lot of pesticides, stuff like that. So if you have a lot of sensitivities, you may want to check that in more detail. And really the labels, it's not, if you get a snack and it's got under 5 ingredients, it has more than 5 grams of fiber, less than 10 grams of sugar, more than 10 grams of protein, it's probably a healthier snack than, you know, a muffin or a donut. And the carb fiber ratio, if you are eating any kind of bread or other carb, you know, whatever, it should be under 5. Okay, so start the day the right way. Eat real food, not processed, not ultra processed, never ultra processed if you can, and get sunshine. Okay, so it's up to you. You have the choice. You can choose wisely. You can choose to follow the Health Canada diet. The latest one I really like, half your plate, fruits and vegetables. They get it, right? You have a quarter for your whole grain foods, get the carb fiber ratio under 5 or less, and get some protein there. And they don't really emphasize a lot of meat, which is nice to see. They actually do a lot of protein sources, plant-based protein sources as well. Make sure you drink enough water as well. Hydration is important. Now, if you don't choose this way, then you could end up like what I see with a lot of my patients on a grocery bag full of pills. You know, here's a pill for your depression. And then you feel your stomach hurting. Here's a pill for your stomach. And then you feel tired. Here's a pill to feel more, you know, concentrate better. Then you're put on this pill, that pill, this pill. You don't want to go that way. You got to choose well. Choose well. And the Bible says very clearly, so whatever you eat or drink, whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. The way you look after your body is your act of worship for God. Your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit. And you read about that in 1 Corinthians chapter 6 earlier, 4 chapters earlier. It's a temple of the Holy Spirit. We are not our own. We were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your body. Now, I already used up half my time, so I'm going to really, really cut the corners on the next few things. Number 1, sleep better. Hippocrates said sleep and watchfulness, when immoderate, will lead to disease. And immoderate sleep means not getting enough sleep. So when they looked at a study, a meta-analysis looking at 1 million, over 1 million, well, actually 1 million, almost 1,383,000 people who were followed for 25 years. If you didn't get proper sleep, the amount of sleep, you were 1.7 times more likely to die prematurely. And what's the what's the amount of sleep? It's 7 to 8 hours. I don't know why it's not clicking in here, but yeah, so it's 7 to 8 hours is what you need. And not only that, but you also have to get good quality sleep. If you have insomnia, you have trouble falling asleep, you're 2.8 times more likely to feel depressed. You're 3.2 times more likely to be anxious. And your all-cause mortality is about the same as not getting enough sleep. So not getting proper, setting aside time for the 7 to 8 hours of sleep compared to those who sleep under 6 and compared to people who sleep more than 9 hours, too little, too much, is not good for you. And if you have trouble falling asleep, you've got to deal with it. You've got to address that because it's also a cause for all sorts of diseases. So this is what happens when you throughout the day. You've got your cortisol hormone, which was released by your adrenal glands, right? And it's normally high in the daytime when you wake up. And as you go through the day, your cortisol level should drop down so that when you go to bed, it's low. Because when it's low, it allows your melatonin hormone, which is released by the pineal gland and the mitochondria in your cells, to go up. And melatonin helps you fall asleep, but it also helps you, it's like an oil that lubricates the different stages of sleep, going from light sleep, which is stage 1 sleep, to 2 and 3 sleep, deep sleep, and then down to REM sleep where you dream, right? And so you have deep sleep. Deep sleep is when your body repairs itself. It's when your brain activates something called the G lymphatic system that cleans the toxins that are building up in your brain, like tau protein and beta amyloid, which is linked with Alzheimer's, right? You need that type of cleaning that occurs in deep sleep. REM sleep is when your brain is consolidating the nerve pathways, your memory, it's helping you process emotions for the day, right? And so if you don't get those type of stages, you're going to compromise your mental health and your physical health long term. So this is a device that I use to track my sleep, and you can get an Apple Watch to do that. I have an Oura ring, OURA ring, and this is what I started off. I was really not good. I was not doing a good job with my sleep, my REM sleep. Everything was really, really poor. So some of the things I've done to help is to get myself exposed to bright light when I wake up. So today's a great day, lots of sunshine. You can go outside, get your 5, 10, 15 minutes of sunshine. On the dark days in the winter, get a light lamp, like the Very Lux light lamp that you can get, not expensive, $60 to $90 to expose yourself. Plan to do a nap. If your cortisol level is running high and you want to be able to sleep, do a 20-minute power nap 7 hours after you get up. The science shows that if you do the nap too late, your cortisol level is still going to be high. And if you do it too long, you're going to be so groggy and it'll make you all stressed out. So 7 hours after your normal waking time. So I usually get up around 7 in the morning. I'll do my power nap at 2 p.m. and I'll limit it to 20 to 30 minutes. But a power nap can really help you with getting yourself to sleep better as well. Now, in the evening, I put on my blue light blocking glasses, right? So I'll put this on for you to see. It blocks out blue light because, again, this will shut down, the computer screens will shut down your melatonin production. And another paper just came out recently that covering your eyes with an eye mask as you sleep actually is good for your REM sleep, which you need to consolidate pathways. They actually did a study on college students, and the students that actually had that scored much higher on their exams or their testing the next day. Actually, after a week of doing this, it was a crossover double-blind study, right? One group had real masks, and the other group had fake masks, but there's still light that got through. So again, this is something that also can really help with your sleep. And for us, ethnic Chinese, we have a higher likelihood of having sleep apnea. If you have any snoring, Beihan, if you choke when you sleep, get a sleep study, right? My Guma, my aunt, died in her sleep. And I did my sleep study, and I've been using, not the CPAP machine, which is needed if it's severe, but I've been using dental devices now for the past 11 years, which have been really, really helpful. And it allows me to sleep on my back, not have neck pain, etc. So sleep is vital, okay? And now my scores are better. See, this is one of my more recent scores. My favorite verse for sleep in the Bible, I will lie down and sleep in peace. For you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety. So I'll meditate on this at night. And not to pull a verse out of context, but if you read what David wrote 3 verses earlier, in verse 3, he says, in your anger, do not sin. So don't go to bed angry. It's even said in Ephesians, don't grieve the Holy Spirit by being angry. And in the verse before this, verse 7, it says, have joy. So have an attitude of gratitude. So in your journal, write down 3 things that you were grateful for before you go to sleep. And that really helps you get ready for sleep, and so you can fall asleep easier and faster. Now, the next one is to move to improve. Hippocrates said, walking is man's best medicine. If you are in a bad mood, go for a walk. And if you're still in a bad mood, go for another walk. So with sleep, remember the number is 7 to 8 hours. With exercise, it's 150 minutes a week. That's what you need to really improve your mood. 43% less depression, 42% less anxiety, 60% less distress in 128,119 people followed. These are studies just published this year, right? So the science is really catching up and showing this sort of stuff. And if you add weight training, your all-cause mortality, besides being 32% lower if you do 150 minutes a week, you add weight training 1 or 2 times a week, strengthening your muscles, your all-cause of death goes down by 41%. So exercise, you got to make it an exercise. Again, a good passage for this is in Hebrews. You can read that in Hebrews 12, 11 to 12. And interesting, the author said, strengthen your feeble arms and your weak knees. I is to inhale, but when you breathe, you've got to not breathe through your mouth. You've got to breathe through the nose. The latest science is nasal inhalation will elevate your production of nitric oxide 6 times more than if you breathe through your mouth. Nitric oxide you need for your heart, you need it for your circulation, your brain, you need it for your muscles. It's good, and so you're learning to breathe through your nose and also learning to breathe deep, not shallow, but deep into your belly, into the diaphragm, getting the diaphragm out. So I want you all to do this right now, okay? Put your hands on your waist. Okay, and now breathe in for 4 seconds through your nose. Make sure your belly comes out and your ribs at the lower ribs also comes out. You don't want it to go all just in your stomach. Now hold your breath there for 4 seconds. And breathe out slowly for 4 seconds through your nose again, making sure you elevate your belly. You want to elevate the diaphragm, get all the air out. Now hold your breath out for 4 seconds. And if you do this 4 times, you will be in a parasympathetic state that prepares you for the mission of your life. This is what the Navy SEALs, the US military, the ones who take out the bad guys on a mission, they do something called box breathing. And it's this box breathing that you do before a major task that gets you into a parasympathetic state. So you're not all nervous and edgy. This is what I did actually just before getting on Zoom today. I did my 4 rounds of 4x4 breathing, right? And there's a lot of science that even children are helped with that. Before you put them on an anxiety pill, teach them to breathe, the balloon technique for children, right? And there's big studies in 2023, the effect of breath work on stress and mental health. Now I have a whole slide series on meditation. I don't have time to talk about it. Suffice to say that inhale nasally, PM means in the evening, right? So as you prepare for sleep. P is inhale nasally as you pray as well, as you meditate. M is for meditation. So prayer and meditation are key with this as well. And meditation is mentioned 34 times in the Bible, if you really look at that. And again, we can talk about that in the Q&A. So, here we are. There's 2 types of nervous systems. The vagus nerve is the parasympathetic system. The other system, which is driven by cortisol, that stress hormone, is the sympathetic system. And in our society with rush hour, rushing around, going back and forth, work, pandemic, being afraid, even being busy on a Sunday at church, we're all in the sympathetic state. Now, learning to get the vagus nerve activated by breathing, such as what I've shown you, slows your heart rate down. It helps your lungs breathe and communicate better. It lowers your blood pressure, reduces inflammation. It makes your immune system stronger. It helps you digest. It's your gut digestion nerve, right? And it helps you relax. And there's different ways you can do that. It's not just a deep, slow breathing, regular exercise, meditation, chilling out, singing. Augustine said singing is prayer squared or something, twice the prayers, right? Singing, songs is good. Laughing, there's even something called laughter yoga that's out there now. And gargling is also a technique to really get the body back into more of a parasympathetic state. So inhale, PM. Now, L is to love and connect. The study that came out 2 years ago looked at people who are 50 years and older. And I know I've learned that most of us online here are in that age range, about a 2-to-1 ratio of females to males. And what happens is you lose a spouse later on, you become lonely, right? And they followed people to over 12 years, of 42,000, 1,100 adults. They realized that if we can prevent loneliness, we can prevent depression, major depression disorders. There's a role for the church community that we have to reach out to the orphans and the widows, as James says. That's religion that is really meaningful. We need to reach out and really counter the loneliness that occurs, 11 to 18% prevention, right? So that's a big study that just came out 2 years ago. So ask yourself, who are your 4 or 5 closest friends, right? And you want to be, you want to have 4 or 5 closest friends who have similar habits. If they're all, complaining, they smoke marijuana all the time and they're depressed and they're getting into accidents, well, you become like them. Whereas if you're surrounded with people who have an attitude of gratitude, who exercise, who are careful with how they eat and how they really grow spiritually, then that's a good group to be with. There's a good science there, but remember the number 5 for who you're going to be surrounded with. Don't be swept by the crowd. You could be swayed to do this, do that. You've got to really have discernment in knowing who your closest friends are. You've got to be able to set boundaries. And obviously watch out for the wolf in sheep's clothing, right? They could be hiding there in the crowd. All right. And interesting, the studies on prayer, faith-based community. I mean, most of you attend church. That's great. Attending 4 times a month can add 4 to 14 years to your life based on some longevity studies. For those of you who are married, if you want to solidify your marriage, you want to avoid the standard 2018, which is when I heard the study, rates of 1 in 2.5 marriages end in divorce, right? But the study also shows that if you attend church weekly, pray and read the Bible together with your spouse, the risk of divorce is 1 in 1,105 marriages. So that's much better odds, right, for having your marriage go longer. So to close, Hippocrates said, all disease begins in the gut. 2,400 years later, probably a future Nobel Prize winner, Professor Alessio Fasano, who is a professor of nutrition. He's also a professor of pediatrics and a professor of gastroenterology at Harvard. He said all disease begins in the leaky gut. And the science is right there. You want to have a healthy gut, healthy immune signals. 95% of your happiness, serotonin. Is it made in the brain? It's made in the gut. 50 to 60% of your reward neurotransmitter, dopamine, is made in the gut, not your brain. So getting the gut healthy is foundational. If you sleep right, it's good for the gut. If you meditate, it's good for the gut. If you reduce stress, it's good for the diet. And then pre-box, probiotics. Again, these are all the science is right there now. So let's do a quick summary. Let's do a quick answer, because if this was live, I'd be giving out prizes to whoever got the right answer. But I'll just ask: sleep. How many hours of sleep do you need? What are the numbers for that? 7 to 8. So if you're having trouble with your sleep, maybe put a star beside that. That's what you're going to work on. You're going to do something maybe to help with your sleep, whether it's use blue light blocking glasses or just get into a regular pattern. For move to improve, how many minutes do you need a week to reduce depression, anxiety, and improve your longevity and quality of life? 150 minutes a week. And any activity is better than none. If you're doing 5 or 10 minutes, increase it. But you've got to getting up higher is better. And it's got to be 150 minutes of, moderately intense exercise. If you're just puttering around, that's not good enough. You want to get the heart rate up where you feel a little sweat, maybe a little bit of panting. You hear yourself huffing, puffing, then you know you're at a good level. Inhale. We learned about the 4-4-4-4 box breathing technique. Love, have the 5 closest friends that you can connect with, that you can really grow with, along with your spouse, right? And eat right. We talked about the 5-10-10-5 rules, but just remember, 5 to 10 servings of fruits and vegetables a day is what you're going to aim for, right? And the last thing I give you a little extra is soul rest. What is the answer biblically for mental health? Really, it's coming to Jesus, knowing Jesus. And if you are not a Christ follower, I hope you will open yourself to maybe reading the Gospel of John. We have a Bible study fellowship thing you could join in September, or the Alpha course to learn and answer your questions. But learn about Jesus. He's really a role model. He was always in a parasympathetic state. You never read about him being stressed out. You read about him spending time with his Heavenly Father, praying and getting himself stronger. And for those of us who are weary and burdened, we need to learn to take his yoke upon us, because it's easy. His burden is light. Let him direct. Let's give up our own control of things, that we have to do things our way and let him take over and learn from him. For Jesus is gentle and humble at heart. And by doing this, by not learning about Jesus, but being intimate, connecting with Jesus, you will find rest for your soul. So I just want to end with we have our first granddaughter. She was born 2 months ago, and at the 2-month mark, that's when she had her first smile. So thanks again. I'll see you guys at the Q&A. Thanks.